And ta-da! Level designing, right? Level
Dude,
designing.
that's not level design.
No! No, 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 no. I'm a level designer. I'm
Okay.
a level.
What's up? What's up, people? Today we're going to be talking about level design. There is a lot of confusion of what level design for games actually means, and we're going to talk about it. And today I've invited a very special guest to talk about level design, and that is Game Dev Bro. He reached out to me saying he's a very experienced level designer for games and he knows all about level design. So, welcome on the show, Game Dev Bro.
What's up, dude? Thanks for having me, man. Dude, best decision ever to call me. I know all about level design, man. I've made hundreds of levels. You guys are gonna know everything from this video all about level design, man.
That's great to hear, Game Dev Bro. Can you please show us your best level?
Sure thing, man. Here's my space level.
That's pretty cool. So, now can you show us a playthrough of the level?
Huh? What?
It's a game level, a video of the gameplay in that level where you can like walk around, interact with things, maybe talk to some NPCs, solve some puzzles, collect objects, do some combat.
Huh? What?
Okay. So tell me what exactly you did here in this level.
So I got all these assets on the asset store, man. I got like a super sweet deal. I downloaded all of them and then I opened up Unreal. I take them and I put them inside a level. I arranged them like nicely with all my level design stuff. Then I put some cameras and then I take a screenshot and ta-da! Level designing, right? Level
Dude,
designing.
that's not level design.
What do you mean?
I mean, level design is when you create the player experience and the journey of a player in the game world and not just like you just made a random environment.
Okay, so I'm an environment artist then?
No, because like you just got some assets and you threw them together. You didn't actually create them. Now, if you had actually created those assets in Blender yourself, then you would have been an environment artist.
No! No, 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 no. I'm a
Okay,
level
all right.
designer. I'm a level.
Okay, all right. Oh, okay, right. Sorry about that. So, as you guys can see, there is a lot of confusion about what exactly level design for games is all about. Lots of people reach out to me saying they're level designers like GameDev Bro, and they're actually not. What they're doing is they're just like putting stuff together in Unity or Unreal and taking a screenshot and they're calling it a game level. That's not a game level, that's a pretty scene in a game engine, and you don't get a job for creating pretty scenes in game engines. What you do is get a job as level designer, and what you actually do is you create the functionality of the game. What you do is that you create the gameplay, you create the interaction that the player has with the game world. So a level designer's job is to actually take the game engine. Yes, level designers do actually work with the game engine, even though it's Unreal or it's Unity or whatever. So they take the game engine and then they actually create the game world piece by piece from the absolutely first point where the player spawns and then does the first thing and then does the second thing. All that stuff is actually created by the level designer using the game engine. Now, some of you may ask, okay, so does the level designer need to write the code for the game engine? Normally, no. In a normal game team, there's a programmer that's going to create the functionality. For example, the programmer will create the functionality of walking and running and jumping and interacting with objects. And the level designer will use that functionality to actually create the game world. The level designer will put down the spawn points, for example, where the player spawns, and then go a certain way, probably put a trigger that triggers a NPC that's going to spawn and perhaps talk to the player or actually engage in combat with the player. And once the player, whatever, kills the NPC, then perhaps he'll get an object, or perhaps when he talks to the NPC, he or she will actually get an object or a plot object, or there'll be a cinematic triggered. And that entire sequence of gameplay from moment to moment is actually built by the level designer in the game engine. So level design and game world design is kind of like the same thing. So the whole world of the game is a game world, and a small part of that, a bit of that, is a level. So as a level designer, you will actually be creating the game world bit by bit. It's possible that in the game world you have firstly a desert level, and then you have a jungle level, and then I don't know, you have an underwater level or a post-apocalyptic level. So the level designer will actually create each one of those levels bit by bit. Now, the things that a level designer actually does in the game is firstly they place triggers and spawn points. So they have to make sure that the pacing of the game is right, that the player is not bored, the player is not overwhelmed. So they need to understand where the player is going to spawn, where the NPCs are going to spawn, where the enemies are going to spawn, the events that are actually going to happen. Next job of the level designer is to guide the player as to what to do next. Moment to moment, minute to minute, the level designer knows exactly what the player is going to be doing, whether he's going to be exploring or performing combat or doing a puzzle or jumping or talking to somebody. The moment to moment interaction of the player and telling the player what to do next, guiding the player very subtly without really telling the player what to do, is part of the level designer's job. You can walk over a certain point in the game and a cinematic would trigger. That cinematic would be triggered by the level designer, and in some case the cinematic would actually be created by the level designer as well. It kind of depends on the team. In larger teams, of course, you have a separate designer creating the cinematics, but in small teams, I personally, when I've worked in a small team, I'm actually been creating my own cinematics in the game engine. So it depends on the size of the team. Next up, adjusting and creating difficulty. Now, the level designer's job is actually to make sure that the game gets more and more and more challenging. So, for example, if it's a combat game, you would spawn at a certain point, you would have an enemy coming at you with a small weapon, like perhaps a pistol. And then later on, a little bit later, the next enemy that came at you would probably have an assault rifle, and then one would come with you with a rocket launcher. So deciding which enemy comes at you and what weapons they have is also kind of like the job of the level designer. Of course, there could be a mission designer as well in the mix, but usually this stuff is implemented by the level designer. Next job of the level designer is introducing new mechanics. So for example, in a platformer game, first of all, when you start it, you'd probably have a run and you would have a jump. And at some point, there would be a double jump introduced into the game. And that would be the level designer's job to actually introduce a double jump. And how would he or she introduce a double jump? Obviously, by placing a higher obstacle for the player to jump over. Single jump doesn't work, do a double jump, and then you've gotten over the obstacle and you've learned a new mechanic, which is called the double jump. Now that is taught to the player through the gameplay, through the game world, and implemented by the level designer. All right, lastly, and I talked about this, is placing weapons and pickups. This is all the level designer's job. They need to understand where the player needs to collect weapons, and perhaps in a platformer there is a pickup, or there is a coin, or there is a power up. So the level designer's job is actually to place all these objects in the game, whether it's a dynamic game such as Subway Surfers or a static game level such as Call of Duty. The level designer's job is to make sure that the stuff that the player needs to collect is there in the right place. So a level designer works with other designers. It's possible that in a large team, you have a game designer, you have 2 or 3 or 4 level designers in case the game world is really big. There are games, AAA games, which are huge, which have 10 15 designers, because there's 20 30 hours of gameplay in there. They have massive worlds. So you can have one level designer in a game, you can have two, you can have a whole bunch. You can, in a small studio, you could also be a game designer that's making the game and also creating the levels. I've done that. I've been in a game where I've pretty much built the game on my own and also created all the game levels on my own. So essentially, it depends on the size of the team and the size of the game. So the level designer's job is to actually work very, very closely with the programmers, because the programmers are actually going to be creating the functionality and the level designer is going to be implementing it. Lastly, art. Now, it's not normal for a level designer to actually create the environment art, but once again, it depends on the team. Again, I've been in a team where I've actually created all the environment art by myself, but that's not normally the level designer's job. The level designer takes the environment art assets, such as the building and the trees and the skybox, etc., and actually places them in the level of the game, and they're created by the artist. They hand them over to the level designer. The level designer imports them into the game engine and actually places them. So the level designer's job is to bring everything together and create the minute-to-minute experience for the player in the game. Now, that was a basic 101 fundamental of level design. So in future videos, I'm going to actually go much deeper into level design. It's a fascinating topic and there's not so much information about it there. So if you're interested in that, give this video a like and let me know if you're interested in more complex level design. So I will see you then. Let's go.